Hello, welcome to Preparation Avengers, a podcast that we do every once in a while to talk about all the films in the MCU. I'm your host, Major Tom, and joining me this week to my left is Danny DKP Kilpatrick.
Good evening, boys.
To my right is Paul Pebiv Burns.
That's me.
To my far, far, far left is James Festus Salins.
How do you do, fellas?
And joining us all the way from sunny California is Alexander Idefy Hernandez.
Hey now.
You're an all-star. We watched Ant-Man
That was
and
a bad one.
It was bad when one
If
of
you're
us
still
did
with
it. It
us,
was
thank
really
you.
bad.
I
It was really bad when
I
two of us.
understand.
Thank you.
So yeah, we just watched Ant-Man and the Wasp in the last 48 hours or so.
We certainly did.
Yep.
So if this is your first time checking out Preparation Avengers, basically we just review all of them and talk about them. But we were doing it leading up to Infinity War. Now that Infinity War is done, we wanted to keep going. So the way the show starts is we start with some facts. You guys all warmed up and ready to go? Ready for some facts?
Give me some facts.
About to say I'm ready.
I'm wet, lubed, and ready for them facts. Slide them in, baby.
Oh, they're coming.
Getting hot in here.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. It was released on July 6th, 2018. It had a budget of $162 million.
That seems low
Compared to Ant-Man's $142 million. So $20 million more.
So how much does shit like, let's just say Iron Man 3, like just ballpark. Wasn't it like 300 million?
No. Only the big dog Avengers movies are anywhere near that.
It's been so long since we've done one of these. I forget like
I
what
think
is when you're talking hundreds of millions, it's easy to be like, that doesn't sound like that much for this.
As far as box office return, we only have the opening weekend estimates, which are currently sitting at 83.7 million, which is about 15 to 20 million more than Ant-Man made in its opening weekend.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
So
for
yeah,
me.
it's on track to.
But didn't it get
outperform.
exactly 20 million more
Basically,
in funding?
yeah.
Hmm.
So you think it's
So
out in the wash now? We're good.
So I actually think that this one had a lot more impressive facts.
Yeah, I
The
do
fact
too.
that they didn't spend as much money on it, I think, is
No, they
speaks to
spent
their-
more money.
Well, but $20 million more is not a lot more, and
Hey, at
speaks
least
to
we know
them
those
getting
effects didn't go to the quantum realm.
That's.
Everything else in that movie did though. Sorry, what were you saying, Pep?
Well, I was just saying that they got their money for that $20 million.
For sure.
I think they're getting better at making these movies and better at making them cheaper. They also put way more people in it. There's like 1 billion people.
Yeah, this
in it.
cast is a lot larger.
There certainly is. No, despite my feelings on the film or whatever, yeah, I hope it does well. I like Paul Rudd. I like the character Ant-Man, so I'm glad to know it's doing on track.
Yep.
And who knows? You as the viewer, I might love or hate it. You don't know. Based on what I just said, I bet.
So this one was directed by Peyton Reed. Peyton Reed directed the first one and other stuff, but
Man,
primarily the first.
Still wish I could write though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was wondering like what his vision would have been even
Yeah.
more so after
Well,
seeing
there's
it.
a script
Me too.
for it online. I
It's
haven't
not a
read
whole
it,
lot
but
different.
Have you read it?
No, I just know that basically it was structurally the same thing. There were just a couple of things that they wanted to try to force into it that he didn't want.
Different
So
style,
there-
different
so, like,
style as well though.
It's rumored that the Falcon scene from the first one was something he didn't want. He didn't want any Avengers stuff in it. Like, he was okay with it connecting, but he didn't want to put stuff from other people's movies in his movie.
Which, like, that's, if I remember correctly when we talked about this, I can vouch personally, that's like one of the things I liked about it was that it seemed like just its own focused story. This one does kind of the same, but
Yeah.
move on.
This one was written by Paul Rudd, Chris
Paul Rudd
McKenna.
wrote- He was a
He's
writer
one
on
of the
this?
writers.
Was he a
There-
writer on the
he was
first
a
one as
writer on
well?
the
He
first
was a
one,
writer
too.
on the
Okay.
first one, yeah. There are 5 writers, so it's Paul Rudd, Chris McKenna, and Eric Summers. And Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, they wrote Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh.
They wrote the latest Jumanji movie. They wrote the Lego Batman movie. So they do, like, small-scale comedy. I haven't seen Jumanji, but
Oh,
I
hey,
can't imagine it being that big.
I've heard good things about it.
I have
this,
to.
this is super important.
Okay,
all right.
We're listening.
We usually say this near the beginning. We are not experts
Absolutely not.
on Marvel
no.
content.
We're not experts on anything.
If you're wondering,
No,
like, why is
no.
this guy on a Marvel podcast being like, did Paul Rudd write the first one? That's the point.
Yep.
Just regular dudes.
Bunch of
Some of us have read some
Joes
shit,
here.
but yeah,
In fact, I would love
we're gonna get a
feedback
lot wrong.
in the comment section. Somebody drop the line and say, "No, man, that is not how that was." Let me tell you, that's cool with me.
Idefy knows a few things.
It's cool with Peb, but I'm the one with the login. Fuck off. Don't post your bullshit here. Send it to him directly.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I say.
All
I'm
right.
kidding, of course.
The last two writers were Andrew Bearer and Gabriel Ferrari, and they've written a couple of things.
Yeah, guy.
It's his brother.
They've
wasn't
written a
as good
couple
at
of things
cooking.
that came out in the last couple of years, but they haven't. Like, I didn't recognize any of the things that they've done. It didn't seem like anything that I've ever heard of. So, yeah.
All right.
They're getting their start. They're getting their payday, and that's it for the Wikipedia facts.
Good to know Guy Fieri's brother's doing all right.
Right. Think they have the same haircut?
Of course they did.
Is he the guy that goes bam?
No, that's Emerald. The Guy
Emerald
Guy
Lagasse.
Fieri is the guy with like the flame T-shirts and the fucking
right.
bleached tipped hair.
Yep.
Looks like the Smash Mouth guy.
Who, when he eats shit,
Yes.
he if he's like eating a handful of chips, he'll suck it up to his first like dent in his knuckle. And
I'm so glad this is finally a camera show.
Yes,
dude, like
that's what we were missing right there.
I mean that's a hard thing to describe exactly. You know? I am glad this is.
I don't think I
cam
saw it that time either.
This is an official cam show. Yeah,
All right, let's get to our cast. Starting out the cast, Paul Rudd as returns as Scott Lang.
And I thought he did a great job of being that exact same guy that we got introduced to in the last movie.
If we're giving opinions, Paul Rudd is
Please.
always great.
Paul Rudd is always great.
Weirdly enough, I mean, I just like Paul Rudd as an actor.
Yeah,
He's
me
just
too.
One of those people that even he's in a fucking shitty movie, I still like him.
I'm
Which,
not a-
believe it or
you
not,
tell me that Paul
I
Rudd's
was
in
not
something, I'll
referring
check
to
it out.
this one. But
I'm not a fan of his romantic comedies, but other than that, he's
like
pretty
what?
good.
I might just not have watched those. I watched This Is 40 and like 40-Year-Old Virgin. He was good in those as a character.
Did you
but-
see
I'd have to do some
Halloween: The
research.
Curse of Michael Myers? He was pretty bad in
Holy
that.
fuck, Paul Rudd wasn't that. He was.
He was.
I forgot about that.
Anyways,
But I felt like he was phoning it in for the first like quarter of this movie. The way that he delivered the lines, it was very weird. It seemed like it had a moment of pause after every funny thing he'd say, like almost as though there was either a laugh track supposed to be there or a look at the camera like, get it? I'm that guy.
That seems like it should be part of 2. 2A.
Which didn't feel that way in the first one.
There
And
was
I didn't feel that way through mostly the second half of the movie either.
so do you mean he had sort of a Deadpool quality to him? He was too self-aware?
No, I don't think it was intentional. That's the problem.
I totally get what you're saying though. Like there was an expectation of some sort of like growth or even confidence in himself that I would expect to see in like through an arc from Ant-Man to Civil
Spoilers,
War.
by the way.
Yeah, we're definitely going to
Just a heads
spoil
up
the hell
if
out
you're
of this
watching
movie.
this.
There was an expectation of growth that he would have as a character, and not necessarily of like becoming a better person or things like that, but just like him being more confident in himself as a quote unquote hero, but also him being more confident in his abilities and the people around him being more confident in him that I expected to see that this movie didn't have it. And I don't know if it necessarily like hurts the movie because of that, but it's basically he's just doing the same bit. He's just doing the same bunch of bits that he did in the first one, which I'm sure a lot of people really liked. But
Well said, Major Tom.
oh, thank you. Next up, Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne.
So I've loved her since Lost.
Yeah.
She's got I have a weak spot for her. I enjoy seeing her. I like her on screen. Her hair in these movies, for some reason, doesn't.
Dude, that's what we talked about this
work.
briefly after the movie, but it's like in the first movie, like that haircut, that like
Bob.
No, well, what is it?
The Can I
like
Speak
the
to Your
Uma
Manager?
Thurman Pulp Fiction haircut. Like, I dig on that
Yeah, me
a
too.
lot, but it looked like a fucking wig in the first one, and I don't think it was.
It definitely was not.
But I could not shake the fact, and like there are a lot of women who dye their hair black, and it like, but not to a degree where it looks like that shiny plastic black wig type of hair. It totally looked like that in the first one, and she ditched it in this one, and it just still just looks fucking weird. I don't understand it.
I thought she looked.
Yeah,
I
and
thought she looked great.
I really enjoyed her acting, and I enjoyed her action. I thought that
Yeah.
whether or not it was actually
looks,
her.
Sorry. No, she killed it in this movie. She did a really good job.
Well, we have to say this was her movie. I mean, as
For
much
sure.
as I wanted Paul Rudd's character more involved,
This was basically Mad Max Fury Road.
Agreed. This was
not
her
Mad
time
Max
to shine.
Fury
I,
Road.
I
No,
would've-
where I mean, like, it's more centralized
on the
around. Even though
female
Ant-Man
character.
comes first in the name of the movie, even though Mad Max was the name of the movie, like it was more about Furiosa, and this was more about the Wasp.
I actually would have preferred it to be more like Mad Max than it was. Like, I think they
Dude,
could
me
have spent
too.
more time on the Wasp.
Yes.
There will,
I
the
love
MCU
Mad
will never
Max.
have an immortal.
Dude, Thanos is absolutely an immortal, Joe.
He is not an immortal.
He goes mediocre.
Shut up.
That's why you be
Thanos
gone.
wishes he was as good as Immortan. That's all I got.
Michael Pena returns as Louis.
I don't have
Louis?
any criticism of
I-
that name.
I think he's a great guy.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I thought he was like, to me, he had a lot of what I would say are the funniest parts of the movie.
Me too.
And I was really nervous about rehashing comedy from the first one. But like specifically the scene that everybody knows I'm talking about, where he is telling a story and it's all the different people, but it's them acting out with his voice. Like that bit, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to work doing this again. And it fucking totally worked. It was hilarious.
So I was watching Ant-Man, and then, Taylor had to put in a drink for Dr. Pepper like 3 times. And then he kept doing this thing with his arms the whole time, like, looked like he was shaking, like he was having kind of a seizure. And I was like, what? But then, I know I didn't like the movie that much, but then I talked to Festus, and he was lukewarm on it. Like, it was the whole, that whole bit. It was done really well in this one.
I thought adding in the truth serum to that whole element really added to it. Actually.
I think so. I felt like the truth serum joke like hit.
So,
got hit too many times. They
yes,
hit that
remember
joke too many times.
on a previous...
When the dude at the end, when he gets hit, he's like, it really is truth
On a
serum.
previous episode, I talked about this, where it's like the Marvel movies have a problem with doing this, where it's like if a joke, they know which jokes are gonna land because they're probably like it's focus group, screen test. They know it's very formulaic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes like they take one and they put it in like 9 fucking times.
It's true.
To the point where it becomes like obnoxious.
I did not feel that
That
this
was
was a
one of them.
taser face. It didn't.
That's what it was. We called it taser face.
Taser face.
Yeah.
It didn't get to the taser face level for me, but I can see how you might have had that experience.
I didn't really get that with the truth serum. I saw it. Like, I definitely knew they were fucking taser facing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't offensive to me. There were other things like that they kept pulling back that I was like, oh, okay, for fuck's sake. But yeah, Michael Pena killed it.
Yeah,
I
he does
kind
a
of
great
wish they would have given the other characters a little more comedic roles over Michael Pena. While some of his jokes really worked really well, it was just kind of like, okay, this again, okay. He's gonna speed it up, and then they're gonna do this. It's like, come on, let T.I. or the other guy have a good joke.
I was just about to say, give T.I. a chance. Come on.
Yeah.
Now.
I thought that Baba Yaga joke was pretty good, but I felt like it got a little played out.
Oh, definitely.
See, I don't like those other 2 characters.
I like him.
I feel like they're a shitty, mediocre
much better
version
role.
of Michael Pena's character.
Well, see, this is the thing, though. I think you would like them if they would
It's
just
very-
give them
you might be
more
right.
screen time.
I really dig that Ant-Man has a crew, and that
Yeah.
his crew is
But the thing-
mostly incompetent.
But
And that is
we've
really
only
satisfying.
seen him like
I
hanging
agree with
out
that.
and spending real time with Michael Pena. Remember in the first movie, he barely first meets those guys.
Yeah.
I don't feel like when I see them in this movie, I don't feel like they've started a business together. So yeah, it might be that they're just underwritten, but
I think they're underwritten.
And
Definitely.
honestly, this movie had enough going on. It didn't need to spend any more
Boy, did
time
it.
developing other characters.
Speaking of this movie having too much going on, one of my favorite actors from a TV series called Justified, Walton Goggins.
did you know he was in this?
I did.
I did.
Okay, I didn't.
He plays a character named Sonny
Seven, I
Birch.
don't watch the trailers. Up top, baby.
Walton Goggins plays Sonny Birch. What did you guys think of Sonny Birch?
I felt like he should have been the main villain, except like a little bit more capable, and had like instead of that bullshit monologue with Lawrence Fishburne, where he's like, "Let me literally just explain to you the plot of probably a comic arc."
This movie doesn't have a lot of exposition.
I feel like he should have had like a funner monologue, but instead him and his crew reminded me. I was trying to think of what it reminded me of all day yesterday, like at midnight. it hit me. I was like, it reminds me of the 3 bumbling pieces of shit from Baby's Day Out. Those and they even look that way. His like 2 lackeys.
Yep.
Tune in next week when we review Baby's Day Out.
I love
Like-
that movie.
I hated his 2 lackeys especially because like that's what it kept reminding me of. Like they're not Home Alone good of subtlety and nuance to the characters.
Disney did similar villain structures where they'd have 1 villain and 2 comical sort of lackey villains that would bumble along after
And like
them.
101 Dalmatians and stuff like
Exactly.
But I'm with you, Tommy. I love Walton Goggins as an actor, and
No, I think
Yeah.
mostly everyone can agree. Walton Goggins is great as an actor.
And like comparing him, I enjoyed him so much more than the bad guy from the previous one. What was that guy's name? Cray or Christ or
that. Why can't I think of it? We were just
from
talking about
Infinity
Cross.
War?
Cross.
Oh, you're talking about the previous Ant-Man.
Darian
David
Cross.
Cross.
Darian
Darren
Cross.
Not David
Was it
Cross.
Darren Cross? Yeah, not
Darren
David
Cross.
Cross.
Definitely not David Cross. It was David Cross. That would have been like a bizarre movie. But
This
Would've
is
been rad.
but
this is my
he
problem with the
didn't
Walter-
annoy me the way that guy did.
my problem
Go-
with that guy's character is you could have put any other actor in there, and it would have been the same
100%.
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was
that-
no reason to cast him as the semi-villain. It was so pointless.
Well, once again,
Such
that's
a
what I was
waste of
gonna
a good
say.
actor.
underwritten.
They should have saved him
And-
for another Marvel movie. Like
Agreed.
he shouldn't have played
and-
this buffoon character in
I-
this.
That's how I felt about Michael Keaton in
I would
Spider-Man.
love-
But
I thought Michael Keaton was all right.
I would love
And you
to
know
have
what?
seen.
sorry.
For
Okay.
the negativity that Darren Cross and the last one got, at least he was a villain. This guy wasn't even a villain. He was just kind of like a middleman for
He-
whatever device he needed.
Yeah, that's
I
that's-
agree
totally-
with you
He's a little
100%.
We have. I don't think we've gotten to the straight review of the movie and the plot yet, but
This has a
Just
lot
as
to do
a-
with my review of the movie.
I'm going to foreshadow a little bit. I agree.
No, but
hot
that's what I'm
take.
saying. It's such a
kinda is.
sad thing that such a good actor just got such a weak role.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
I feel like he would have done a really good job if he played
Same with Andy
Ebony,
Serkis too.
Ebony Maw from the
Oh, he
Infinity
would be
War.
perfect
because
for Ebony Maw.
if you've watched Justified, like his monologues and delivering monologues are like
Menacing, would you say? Like,
they're
They're
menacing.
superb.
It is like it's some of the best delivery of monologues I've ever seen in any type of television or film medium or whatever. He's incredibly talented. And I feel like I would love to see him do the monologues that Ebony Maw did. But yeah, I agree that you should have saved him for something better.
Saved him for a better Marvel movie.
You know, I'm just grateful that I got an invitation.
Next up, Hannah John Kamen plays Ava/Ghost.
Ugh.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's a place where I disagree with everybody here.
Well, then
I
we will-
love the actress.
We're gonna-
and
the floor is yours.
I thought that this character was really interesting to me. She was a really good. She didn't.
character, the actress.
Oh well, I like the,
The actress
actress.
is
So
super
Yeah, she's
hot.
gorgeous.
and she's a good actress too. And I love
Has nothing to do with. Okay, go. I'm sorry.
And I thought that her villain was did a really good job of not falling into some of the traps that other Marvel villains fall into, and that I love the fact that that she chose not to go after his kid. I love the fact that that her reasoning, she was being incredibly selfish, but that her reasoning made sense as far as like if you were in her situation, you'd want to do something about it, and you'd be focused on yourself as opposed to other people. So she just worked for me. She wasn't great. She wasn't like my favorite villain ever, but I enjoyed seeing her on screen, and I really liked it when she was like flashing around and stuff.
I think I was talking about exposition earlier. I think they gave her character too much exposition.
I agree.
Of like the conversation that she has with what's his
I
name,
don't-
Lawrence Fishburne.
It was just too fucking blatant. Of like, hey, you don't know her backstory. Let us just like read the Wikipedia page to you real quick.
basically.
There and like with literal just flashbacks thrown in there. It was horrendous.
When
By
I
the way,
read on-
sorry, I didn't mean to Jim Halpert you that many times.
That's all right. Jim
I do
Halpert
that
away.
to Tommy all the time. We're doing our normal streams, and like I
what
realize how dickish it is when it's not Tommy. You know when I'm doing that.
No, I think it's dickish then too.
No, it's not. He
okay.
deserves it. I promise. But you said that you thought that they gave her too much backstory.
I thought that they gave her too much backstory in the form of heavy-handed exposition.
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't give her.
It
like,
was
a
the
good amount
literal
of scenes
walking
Hey,
around in
hey,
a room.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
let me finish.
can never
Sir,
finish, baby.
sir, can I finish? Take a drink of that beer. I forgot what I was gonna say.
You were saying that the exposition or backstory was extremely like, well, this is okay. Now it's time
I remember
for
what
that
it was
now.
now. So I was reading online that because they're talking about making a Black Widow movie, and they're talking about it taking place like before she's actually, in the Avengers.
That sounds great.
Like a prequel. And they're talking about the idea of her being like the villain, having that ghost chick be the villain of the movie, because it would tie into the idea that she worked for SHIELD and she was like trying to take people down and she was trying to stop assassins.
Oh.
But basically, the reason I'm bringing that up is that would fix a lot of the problems I have with this character, where like she as a character doesn't feel earned to me. It doesn't feel like she earned the level of care that other characters give her. And like I get why they care about her and why it's important to Lawrence Fishburne that she survives, and I get all of that, but I don't feel like the movie did a good enough job making me feel like they cared.
So what it sounds like, what you're saying is she's like Ronan, where we're gonna see him in Captain Marvel, and hopefully we see Ghost in Black
Don't
Widow.
say hopefully.
That's my hope.
So look, I'll tell you why I despise this character. And it has nothing to do with the actress. There's an instance of that, which is I think Shawnee from Black Panther. I hate that actress.
Mhm.
This isn't
Shuri.
Shuri.
Yeah.
I love Shuri.
I just, dude,
Everybody
I
except
just
DKP
the way
loves
that
her.
she speaks, the whole thing, and it grates on my ears. I hate it. But
You mean the next Iron Man? Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude.
that's what I'm talking about.
Me too.
I can't wait
She's
for
the
that
next Iron Man.
podcast. for that prep Avengers. But okay, so her story is an extremely cliche one. Not that is necessarily a bad thing. It's a very commonly used one, where there's somebody who is an accident happens or occurs, they lose their family, lose everything. They're adopted pretty much by the government and are used as a weapon based on the accident of what happened, right? Fuck, Metal Gear Solid's basically based around that shit, where it's like people are pawns of the government, right? But all these these characters always have really like internal conflict.
Right.
Where it's like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm being forced to. I'd rather die, or whatever the fuck it is, right? This character, I felt, doesn't. It's like, oh yeah, I live in constant pain. Instead of like just killing myself or just fucking off into the forest and like whatever, being used, I'm cool to kill a kid because I want to live, even though I lost everything. Now, like I said, it didn't make sense for the character for me, because every other time you have someone, she lost everything, she knows she's being used, she lives in constant pain, but it didn't even feel like she had that thing of like just fueled rage that fueled her either. It didn't make sense. They use that with Tony Stark in like the twins, right, where it's like, well, they saw the Stark bomb. Her motivation for doing any of this shit and staying just even being alive, when like there are regular ass people that are like have Crohn's disease and cancer, are like, I'd rather just fucking die. And there was like no conflict there, where she's like, oh, I don't want to kill this kid, or she was just down to murder the whole fucking time. It didn't make it made the character flat as hell to me. I hated it.
I could see where you're coming from. She definitely could have had more development in some movie that wasn't this one, and it would have made her be
That's
a
what
lot
I'm saying.
more
Like,
interesting.
I don't like her, but I hope to like her more in the future. I hope that a future movie gives me more context for her.
I would agree
That's
that I
cool.
didn't have enough to, much like Major Tom is saying, I didn't have enough to like say, oh, she's amazing. But here's what she didn't do. She didn't piss me off.
Oh, she pissed me off. So like I can't. Unfortunately, we just had a different.
Yeah.
Every time she was on the screen, I was like rolling my fucking eyes like super hard, because it was like we had a good thing going where they're like having a car chase somewhere else, and then she casually walks through somebody, and then all the fight scenes with her didn't make any fucking sense either.
All right.
I agree,
Gotta move
because
on.
you know what?
Okay.
Hold on, I gotta say one thing. I think one of the major problems with the character, in no way did she ever feel like she was a threat to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And to me, that was a big issue with a character who was supposed to be your villain. In
I
no
thought
way
she started off
did
badass.
ever
like-
feel threatening, whereas Ronan in Guardians, he felt threatening from the beginning. He fucking destroyed a
with that.
guy's head with a hammer.
I
didn't do
disagree. The
And
bit
not
where
only
she
that,
had her
at
hand.
the end, it
In
just
the
kind of
throat.
confirms that she
Yeah.
was just a blasé character with no real motivation.
So I thought she was incredibly intimidating when she stuck her hand through Hank Pym's head, and when she
Michael
Douglas's head.
That's the only way I'm going to remember these names.
And she was sufficiently imposing to me.
But we never saw that again. Like that's what I
Right.
was mentioned.
It's true.
Like
But-
missed
And
opportunities.
get this. This would have been. This movie could have easily been reworked had they just took out Walt Goggins and made her the main focus. Would have
I
been 10
agree.
times better.
You know, I'm just grateful that I got an invitation.
Scott's daughter Cassie is played by Abby Ryder Fortson.
How old is
was she the same
by the
one?
way?
She was the same actress, and I thought she was wonderful.
So, how long have you been Ant-Man again?
Not long. It just sort of happened.
I wish I could fight bad guys like you.
I seem to mess it up almost every time.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back. Like a partner.
Do you know
Yeah,
how
she was
old she
great.
is?
She was little Jim.
How old is she?
I don't know, 10,
Is she?
12?
Well, 'cause I was thinking like that's a little girl,
She's
but like
42.
she's acting well enough to
Dude,
where, like,
her acting
she,
is
she did really
I
good.
thought.
Yeah, she did.
She
But
really
I don't
did.
know like
Excellent job.
how old she's supposed to be, or how old she really is. Because it's like, okay, like you don't see a lot of kid actors that aren't fucking annoying. The only other one like in memory of recent 10 years is Jungle Book, the kid
So-
that played Mowgli.
So when they did that one scene where the two parents are showing a reaction to the TV show, and they to Ant-Man, they're like, "Oh man, it's Ant-Man. He's out doing the thing," and then it pans down to her, and
And
she's like,
got this big smile on her face.
she was
"That
great,
was
man.
straight
No,
up
she killed
acting. It was brilliant."
And
I
like,
love the.
all of her motivations made sense for like,
Yeah.
you know, every kid's like, my dad's a superhero, but she literally like she gets that and she understands like kind of the risks,
And she was-
which was like weirdly mature or whatever.
She
but
was a
yeah.
good liar too, and that part was really satisfying. Like the bit where she was lying to the FBI guy about her
Yeah.
dad being sick. It just that warms my heart to see a grifter and his daughter working together.
Next up, we have Randall Park playing a character named Jimmy Woo.
That the detective?
Fucking
that's the,
shining
You mean
star.
I
Yeah,
really
I
loved
like
him.
him.
Is it Chinese
He
Jim
was
Halpert?
to me the
Asian
funniest
Jim?
character
Is what they
in this
call
whole
him.
movie.
Yeah.
The whole conversation with him and Paul Rudd at the end, where he's like talking about like, do you want to take me to dinner? And he's like, do
Exactly.
you want me to take you to dinner? And then he's like, well, I thought you would ask me. And then he's like, do you want to go to dinner?
So the
That
weird thing
character
is,
I liked a lot.
the
Their-
weird thing
their
is, I
interaction.
think he and Paul Rudd have the same kind of comedic timing.
Yeah,
you
I would agree
know,
with that.
it's like everything's just a step longer than I expected to be, and it makes
Yeah.
it just that much fun.
They hold well. They hold lines well.
Exactly.
Next up, Michelle Pfeiffer plays Janet Van Dyne.
I wish I didn't know she was in it.
I didn't
See,
know she was
I
in
had
this
no idea
movie.
she was in this
I
movie.
totally saw a poster. I was
Yeah.
like automatically knew, well, they're going to save the Wasp.
I don't think Michelle Pfeiffer had good shit to work with. Michelle Pfeiffer's a very talented actress.
She is extremely talented.
But when she's
and
having
my
to
God,
say-
she's
when
like
she's-
a fine wine.
when
She
she's
just
having
gets
to
more and
say-
more gorgeous.
grab the
Like that
healing
scene in-
juice or the quantum healing
The
powder.
healing energy.
Don't fall into time vortexes with a straight face. Like it's fucking kind of weird. You know
Yeah,
what
they
I
didn't
mean?
give her a whole lot.
All right, but she
I appreciate
did
that she did it.
very much look like the mother of Evangelion Lilith.
yeah, they did a
I'll
really
give
good
her
job
that,
with
yeah.
that.
I mean, not
I
only
wish
that,
she was
for,
wearing that fucking vinyl suit though.
for her being kind of almost out of the spotlight for a while,
Yeah,
her looks hold up
Oh
immensely.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
she is a gorgeous lady.
When she first took off the
Yes.
helmet, I thought she had like a big fucked up gash
Alright.
across her face.
So,
Then when it cut to her in the next scene, she looked fine.
but I
I
do
don't
want.
know.
So just to make this observation, we do tend to talk. We need to start talking about how sexy the men are, just for the sake.
Well, that's why we
of-
need.
Oh,
That's
I
why we
would-
need
I
Taylor
would
in here. You know what I'm
totally bang
saying?
Paul Rudd,
Tasty,
totally.
you know, it needs to be in here fucking emoting.
I'm just saying that she was a brilliant actress, independent of how good she
I
looked,
get it.
and she looked great.
I get it. My heart just speaks to how beautiful she is. It just pours out of me. I'm just so attracted to Michelle
The
Pfeiffer.
Absolutely.
Benjamin Button, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Le Magnifique. Thought I was watching Grease too.
I thought I was watching.
You know, now that this is a
Batman
video
Forever.
podcast, can you have a
Batman
camera
Returns.
specifically focused on Tasty so that when he emotes, it just, that's a shining feature?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Right.
We've talked about getting a tasty cam at some point.
By the way, shout out to Tasty. He is behind the computer making all of this
Listening to
look
me
and
shit
sound
talking
great.
you. Yep.
He's behind a curtain like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Very literally like that. No, it might seem sick when I was bringing up women's looks or whatever, but it's like, I'm sorry, like, I just don't experience those feelings when I talk about men, so I don't leave the theater with them when I see men in the movie. Otherwise, I'd probably say it. I don't mean it in a
Don't get
shitty
me wrong,
way.
there are times where, like, where you see, like, Thor, and you're like, God damn, that's a handsome man.
Yeah, well, you get like Chris Evans holding down a helicopter.
Yeah.
That's
You're
just-
like, what is this dude doing?
I can get that, but
Well, no, it's more like my
I don't
wife's
work out
there.
enough.
My wife's sitting beside me, and it's like, oh God, I gotta follow this after we get out of here.
into one of these movies, and
I gotta walk
then
into my lumpy
Owen
ass.
will shit immediately.
He's already in
You
a
want Owen
Marvel
Wilson in one of
film.
these?
In Deadpool
Captain
2.
Wow.
Next up, Lawrence Fishburne plays Dr. Bill Foster.
It was literally just Lawrence Fishburne.
Such a waste.
Yeah, it was a waste. Yep.
And
Michael
I
Douglas.
love that actor. I loved
Lawrence
him. as
Fishburne's
Morty.
great.
I loved him in Boys in the Hood, and here he was just he almost kind of had, I mean, you know, story's different, but the same kind of role he had in John Wick 2. He was just a throwaway character. Very sad.
For sure.
he'll always be Morpheus to me.
Always them.
Michael Douglas returns as Dr. Hank Pym.
Michael Douglas fucking slays it again.
And
He's one of those actors.
I thought he did better in the first one. And again, I think what you were talking about with Michelle Pfeiffer not getting enough to work with, I don't think they gave Michael Douglas
I definitely
good
liked him
stuff to
more
work
in the
with.
first one.
I do think that he was in a lot of this movie more than I expected. Like,
Yeah.
like I expected him to be sort of like show up at the beginning and show up at the end, and he was involved in the heists. He was involved. He was all around.
He had a lot of screen time, but I don't feel like he was talking or doing anything interesting for most of it. Unlike in the first one, him being in the mentor role was perfect.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I don't feel like he shined at all too brightly.
This is gonna sound weird, but I wish he'd had more fights with Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
I like
No, I
that
agree
was
with that.
interesting to me. I wanted them to talk about like the Sokovia Accords and
Yep.
like maybe that's dull to other people, but
Dude,
I
the
wanna
fact
know
that
more.
they barely touched on it.
The
Which we'll get
Sokovia
that when we
Accords.
get to the
Are
plot,
you
or maybe we
kidding
won't.
me?
But
This whole movie mentioned.
no, I mean them
War.
specifically. Him being like, "Why the fuck were you there supporting? You know, doing whatever with my
Exactly.
daughter." Right? Like,
We got a good conversation with him and the Wasp.
you didn't see him lay it out like
Again,
a
I
fucking
think it was
father.
it was
Yes.
upset that
I'm
was
disappointed in you.
Yeah, like to
for-
his son-in-law, or like I trusted you.
It was where exposition was put in when good conversation, good dialogue should have been put in.
Agreed, 100%.
Hold on. You gave her wings and blasters. So I take it you didn't have that tech available for me? No, I did.
That's pretty much it for the cast. DKP, although we've talked about it quite a bit, what is the plot of Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Run. We're still running.
Let's go.
Dude, this movie is a fucking mess. It's like watching a theatrical, like, if you had to write a okay, remember how when Battleship came out, and it's like, how are you gonna write a movie around Battleship, right? Imagine if somebody gave you a script and was like, write a movie around the game Hot Potato. And you're like, all right, and you come up with fucking Ant-Man. It's okay. So the plot of the movie is basically this: he's fucked up for being Ant-Man in Germany because you can't be Ant-Man in Germany, and he's on house arrest for a fucking while. And like 2 days, they don't understand. Like somehow it all works out. He's like, oh, but 2 days and I just won't be fucked. And they're like, oh no, you called about your dream. Sorry, bitch.
I
We're
don't
gonna
even know what
fuck
you're
you
talking
and your
about right now.
family. You gotta come right now. We're gonna kidnap you, literally, and have an ant play drums and shit in your house and stuff. So then, I don't know, there's some bullshit where it's like Hank Pym's wife has been like living off fucking murberries in the Spring universe for like 1,000 years, and it doesn't make any sense and it's not explained. But she's like, some other like, I think she's still alive, and even though she ages and has a metabolism, she's still alive. They somehow find out there's like some girl that phases through walls that really like that hates Hank Pym for like a reason I don't even understand. Maybe I just missed that part. I remember one part like, because your experiments, Hank Pym, she hates you, you fucked her over. But it was some other assholes in Germany or some shit. Part of why Ant-Man can't be.
It was
in
Hank Pym's
Germany.
partner, wasn't it?
It was
One of his.
because it was because Hank Pym discredited Lawrence Fishburne. Hank Pym was an asshole to Lawrence Fishburne and kicked him out of the scientific.
So that's why he
community.
had to go fuck up that lab and
So
fuck
he
the
went
girl up, and
and
that's,
teamed
that's
up
his
with
fault. Makes sense for this
Doctor
movie.
in Argentina.
So yeah, so he he had to use substandard science and people to try and save her, and it wasn't sufficient.
All right, well, the plot of the movie, I'm going to wrap it up here. There's a little lab that can shrink and expand, and inside is like the door to their mother, and the whole movie, people want it for, I don't even remember fucking why at this point, and they don't really make any real attempt to hide it or do anything with it. They expand it in broad daylight with without zoning codes and shit like that. And they play hot potato with the fucking thing for like 2 hours of runtime. There's a cool scene on a ferry where he's like, "How'd you even buy a ticket?" That was fun. And then Paul Rudd's lost in the metaverse. And then I wanted to kill myself.
Excellent job.
How dare you besmirch Battleship?
Oh,
That's what you got out of that synopsis.
The whole time he was hanging on to that one like, I'm gonna.
I couldn't
How
think of anything
fucking
else. I'm
dare.
like, Battleship was actually really fun.
It's because it was a phenomenal synopsis.
So, thank you very much. That was a phenomenal synopsis. Let's review this movie. And it may not be a surprise if you guys have listened to the last 30 minutes of this.
All right. I enjoyed this movie. I had a really good time. It was fun. It was funny. I laughed several times throughout it. The acting was really good.
I could hear you laughing. I always smiled every time I'd hear because I know that surprised Paul laugh.
Yeah.
And that made my movie going experience.
Well, I'm glad that helped, but I had a good time. None of the characters bothered me in the ways that other Marvel movies have characters where I was just like, oh God, not this one again. So for me, it was just...
Real quick. So you went past the first 15 minutes of this movie?
Yes, I watched more than the first 15 minutes of the movie.
That's a callback to what? What movie did you put on?
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
It was Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I hate this movie.
It's true. There was no scenes of
we don't need to talk
Kurt
about
Russell
Guardians
in a convertible.
That was the only thing I want to bring up was that somehow you see Kurt Russell in a convertible and you're like, I hate this.
I'm out.
I'm out. So this movie. So here's what I will say for it. So this movie was the problem with this movie is that it's a French farce done badly. And I was trying to come up, I came out of the movie.
You
and
used that term yesterday, but you didn't define what that was.
Yeah, so here's what a French farce is. A French farce is where you have 5 to 8 groups of people who all have the same goal for different reasons.
So would you consider Guy Ritchie films like Snatch or Lock, Stock a French farce?
Thank
They're all
you.
after
Rat
the
Race.
diamond.
Rat Race. So the Death at a Funeral is my big example. Wacky Races.
What's the one from the
70s.
What's the one from the 60s?
The Great Race or the Race. There's another racing one from the 60s where they track down a thing in California. But it's the same idea of...
Everyone's after the MacGuffin.
Everybody's after the MacGuffin.
Different reasons.
And then, for different reasons, and then humor ensues based on it. It's not a great concept for a movie, but it makes for a lot of action, and it makes for a lot of different characters to
If
interact.
it's done well,
I
it can
think
be
it's
a tremendous
I think it's a
concept.
great concept for a movie if the groups of characters that you're talking about are all equally interesting
Agreed.
or funny.
Well,
So this is
or-
the place where this...
If you don't know that's the shtick, just as a quick example, in Snatch, or in Lock, Stock, which sorry, there's 2 Guy Ritchie movies that do that I think are really good. You don't see how they're all going to connect until the end.
You get
but they
there.
were all after the same thing, and when you do, it's well, I didn't know that was happening, and it's like,
Oh,
holy fuck,
this is what's going on.
That's excellent.
And you have all these moments of, I remember this character, he was interesting, and every character has to be interesting and unique in its own way. One guy has a weird accent, another guy takes his kid with him everywhere he goes, etc. Well, this movie did that badly. And so that's the place where I'll complain about the movie, is that I felt like I didn't care about the evil businessman, I didn't care about...
Baby's Day Out guys, you mean?
Yeah, the Baby's Day Out guy. Just whatever. So, but they needed another group, and they just sort of threw it in there. So, even though the French farce part didn't work for me, I still had fun. I still enjoyed it. And the truth is I like his family, and I like rooting for him.
I like his family too.
And I just
they got
like
a lot
them.
of screen time in the first one. They didn't in this one, except for
they gave it
his
all
daughter got a
fucking-
little bit. I think as much. Well, I think more than the first one, but you didn't get a lot of that.
I would agree completely. There are many things that this movie could have done better, but I put this in the same category as Solo. This is a summer movie. I went to it. I had fun. I laughed. It did everything I wanted.
Tommy, I'm relying on you to give the same rebuttal you gave yesterday when he said that.
I don't remember what I said
About
that
Solo.
yesterday.
He's like, I feel like this is Solo. It wasn't the greatest movie, but it was a fun one. And you were like, well, when I watched Solo, I didn't hate myself. Or you said something.
I remember what he
something.
said. He said, when I watched Solo, I found myself enjoying parts
That's it.
that I didn't think I would.
And when
he's
I
like,
watched this,
Ant-Man, I never felt that way.
no,
It was the opposite. It was I found myself not enjoying parts of the movie. Like, there were basically while I was watching this movie, and this happens when I watch some movies. I mean, this happened when I watched Infinity War, which I'm not comparing this to Infinity War. I know you can't compare the two movies. I mean,
Hear
you
that,
can on a
Tasty?
certain level. But when I was watching Infinity War, I would check out of the movie for a second, and I would be like, "Is this fucking real? This is insane! Like, did this just happen? Like, my heart won't stop racing." And when I was watching this, I was like, "This fucking sucks!" Like, so many times. There are so many times where I was like, "I am not having fun." Where I was just like, I would look around the theater and like look at everybody. Is everybody else having fun?
I feel so bad because like
This is weird.
you guys know that I'm a horrible piece of shit pessimist. My wife does this constantly. And I always feel so bad. She's having a good time at it, and she always looks at me. And like I watch I watch most movies even when I'm enjoying it just like this. But I don't know, I felt like somehow she could tell like this motherfucker just ain't liking this. And I kept thinking, like, I can't believe, like, I can't put my finger. It was like an existential crisis. Like, I don't know what's even making me feel bad about this.
Dude, I was having
can't
the same
believe
feeling.
I'm not liking this.
Yep.
And
was having the same feeling.
I kept
I, like,
thinking,
felt
I
bad
kept
about
thinking, like, how when I have an existential crisis in real life, I think by the time I die, I'll be able to put myself into a computer and live forever. So I'll try to think that just so I don't worry about it at night. This one I kept thinking, they got time to make it up to me where somehow I won't walk away being like, I fucking hated this movie.
and they never did.
Dude, it didn't happen. And now I'm afraid of dying. For the first time ever.
So, outside of Preparation Avengers fashion, I actually took notes because normally I watch these movies.
Dude, I
twice.
was hoping that you were. It's sponsored by Dell.
I did get some. Yeah, no, I got some. I got some
Altoids.
brought to you by us. No,
Okay.
this isn't
No,
the.
okay, cool.
We're still reviewing this movie, but I actually took
Altoids.
notes because usually I watch even Black Panther. I watched it and then I watched it again and then we recorded the episode. This I've only seen once, so I'm like, okay, I need to like really think through the movie and like take some of my thoughts down. So some of the stuff I have here, one of them is we got to get that tiny building. Everyone,
Dude, you got to, man.
everyone is like, we got to get that tiny building.
Got to get the hot potato,
Uh,
man.
I felt like there was too much focus on the quantum realm, and I think that would have been okay if the quantum realm had been more interesting. Like the first one, there was here's my comparison. In The Force Awakens, they bring up a lot of really interesting questions about who these characters are and what they mean, and then in the second one, they don't really go anywhere with it. And that's how I feel about these movies. Is in Ant-Man, they build up the quantum realm to be super interesting
Dude,
and
they
have all this
brought it
very
up
cool
almost
stuff.
like a Lovecraftian supernatural, like you're going to lose your mind when you go
And then
there.
you learn. I'm so glad we have a camera now. You learn way more about the quantum realm in this movie, but I don't really get it. And I probably by the time the Ant-Man trilogy's done and by
like,
the
here's what we
Infinity
know.
War or Avengers 4, we'll
So,
probably get more
Tommy,
of it. And
Do you like kaleidoscopes? Do you like the Phantom Realm?
check out
That's
these
about-
parasite
that's a-
whales?
Quantum realm.
Whatever,
So-
man. The
So
metaverse.
I actually agree with you that they had a real opportunity here to tell a story about perceptions
I
and
should have grown
experience.
from behind the curtain, by the way.
But they had an opportunity to talk about the quantum realm and different ways that people experience existence and like what it means. And I think that they chickened out. And instead of doing that, they just made the quantum realm magic and full of healing juice. And so that makes it a very unsatisfying. Like when I imagine that this is how you guys felt about vibranium when we were talking about.
At least
That's
vibranium.
that's how I felt.
That's how I felt about vibranium until I watched Age of Ultron again.
Right.
Whenever what's his name, Metal Man, is like
Ultron.
Ultron. Thank you. The title that I just said.
Everyone on this podcast to fuck that name up. I didn't think it'd be you.
Totally.
Right?
Old Andy Tompkins
when-
and Jebediah Dane, and you fuck up the real one for real.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say Metal Man.
Yeah.
So Metal Man is talking about
Iron
vibranium.
Man?
And no, not just shut the fuck up. Whenever got him. Oh my god.
Keep going, man.
So whenever he's talking about, he says vibranium is the most, what word does he use?
Versatile.
Pep? Versatile substance on the planet, and they use it to make a shield or something like that.
So I felt like
Tony Stark built this with a box of scraps in a cave.
I'd make a bidet out of it.
That's fair.
So this is my point: is that that the quantum realm could have been a lot more interesting and a lot more dynamic, and it would have made the mother character so much more interesting if we had understood what her experience was like, if we had learned a little bit more about what the quantum was. I think that would have. But here's what you couldn't do: is you couldn't have your quantum realm movie, which would appeal to me and 10% of the population, and your French farce that they hoped would appeal to everyone.
I got a hot
What
take
was the-
for you. I feel like if I'm gonna ask this question in a very attacking, accusatory way.
Okay.
But I'm just using it as a prop to ask it too. What the fuck is the difference between Doctor Strange's whatever fucking realm that I forget and that? Could you tell the difference if you just saw them side by side? Like if you had to choose?
This is an example of what I think that they could have done a better job of talking about. And I think that in the comics, there are some real important differences between those two, and there's some similarities. There's some connections. And they didn't explore any of that. Because honestly, like, seriously...
Well, that's one thing
all right,
Taylor
so
was
think
talking
of your grandma.
about.
Is your grandma going to go to one of these movies and care about the quantum realm?
Like, oh, Billy, the quantum realm. Oh, boy.
Exactly.
I don't think corpses go to movies, Pev.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. Jesus. All right. Think of an average. Think of the last pogo call you ever took at EA.
I don't think corpses go to movies,
Oh my
Pev.
god.
I took my dead grandma to see him.
So
That's the tagline. Take your dead grandma to see it.
It's Norman Bates' mother just in the seat beside him, like looking like that. And you can hear Festus cackling. Anyways,
so what was the
so
very
hold
first?
on. What were you saying?
My point was that I understand why they didn't spend a lot of time on it, because it's not accessible to the general population.
Well, a lot of things, like even the things at the end when they're like, we need the quantum healing power. It's
You
like,
got to
this
get
is
this
for
quantum
kids.
healing juice.
No, I don't think it's for
This
old.
V8 splash.
I don't think it's for old people. I think it's for kids. But that's what Taylor was saying. Was like they're tasty behind the curtain over here. Like, there is lore to all that.
Yes.
But like, here's my problem with that. If you're not going to kind of explain it a little bit
Then you
before you
shouldn't
dish
get
it
to
out,
use it.
then my answer to that is like, that's just fucking stupid.
Yes.
then.
I agree
Like
that
it just did. Even though it's in the comics, you see what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah.
if I don't know about it before, you're like, well, there are towns there. And it's like, then that's fucking stupid. I should have expected there, or it should be believable that there are, not just, well, yeah, of course she lived down there and she has makeup and she does her hair as Michelle Pfeiffer and, you know.
I just think that it would they could have done a better job talking about it, and
Yeah.
it would have made because right now we don't care that Michelle Pfeiffer came back, right? We don't know what she went through. We don't. It's just like
that's what I was saying. What do you guys remember what the very first scene of this movie was? Like before we saw the Marvel logo.
oh, was it her searching for?
No,
It was them
No, that's
leaving.
what it should have
It was,
It was
them
them
leaving.
leaving, yeah.
Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer leaving for the trip they weren't
That was
going
just
to
Oh,
go
yeah.
on.
Yeah, that scene, which was already in the first Ant-Man, it should not have been in there. But what instead should have been in there was her in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Like, start the part where she gets sucked into the quantum realm and like have the first 3 minutes of this movie being her, like showing her in the quantum realm and like giving some sort of context as to why she's Princess Leia,
And you
why
could
she has
even-
Princess Leia superpowers.
You could
now.
even put her in peril, right? You don't even have to like,
Yeah.
you know, you get her in there and then there's a big monster and he's going to eat her raw. And then you're like, well, did she die on that day? Did the big monster eat her? We don't know, but we know a little bit about the quantum realm. When you rescue her, we care.
And I think that it's kind of a, not to like shoot down what you're saying, I think it's kind of a cop out to say that they couldn't find a clever way to make it understandable
No,
for regular audiences.
I just think they were cowardly.
Yes, exactly.
They
Yes.
did not take the risk and instead tried to
Yes.
play this game where they...
I think they could have done it without taking a risk. I think they could have done it smartly. I think they could have found a way to explain what the quantum realm was without it being like, without it sounding too complex or too complicated. I just don't think that this team of 5 writers were able to pull it off.
They
No, I
were
agree.
somehow miraculously able to make it sound like neither one of those things. It wasn't too complicated and it wasn't too simple either. it just sounded stupid. With like, oh, don't fall into the quantum bubble double time trap. And it's like, nobody.
Because we'll never find you
You're
again.
supposed to be a fucking scientist. You're gonna say that with a straight fucking face. You're gonna call it healing juice. Shit's named after Latin most times. You're gonna be like, oh, get the healing cream, Scott, from
get the
heaven realm.
Yeah.
Vitonium.
She needs to put stuff in layman's terms. It's like
Yes.
Scott is
Yeah.
supposed to be your average guy, and you're assuming you're viewing the movie through Scott, so you are Scott. And she's talking about all this complicated stuff, but none of it is really explained.
So if I were going to do it, I would do it. I would have made the quantum realm. This is where I say that I'm a much better writer than all those guys who actually make movies. If I were going to do it, I would have made the quantum realm a capture, a fracture of what people are. So you are just your platonic ideal in the realm, right? The quantum realm is sort of eternal, and you go to it, and as long as you can keep imagining yourself, then you keep existing. But as soon as you like get lost, you just get sucked into what everybody else, all the entropy and the chaos, right? And so when she comes back, her ability to like tell somebody you're this person would then make sense. They would say, think about Hank Pym. That's who you are. You are the guy who invented the Pym molecule. You're super important. And boom, he thinks he's Pym, and then they escape. And you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like if he had to go in and he found her all fucked up. Yeah, and we've seen that in movies. That would be a little bit cliche, but it's better than what I think we got, which is like,
her
oh yeah,
just being, I have a magic power now.
I live down here. It's pretty fucking rad. Plus, I got ET fingers now.
She comes out of the
You know what I
quantum
mean?
realm
Like,
and
they
she
glow
just
and
like
shit.
she like
I can heal people.
face offs that girl. She face offs that girl and like heals her,
Dude,
but she
it's-
doesn't fully heal her
It's
based on the
Star Trek Troopers, like, it's afraid.
Star Trek shoot.
Whatever, man. It's
I'd
afraid.
watch Star Trek Troopers.
It's like,
I
and
would too.
she's like, come here. What are you doing? Like, what?
This will be continued on chatterbait.com.
Next thing I want to talk about real quick, the plot device of Scott Lang's suit being buggy. While it created funny moments, the idea of being like, oh no, his suit's bugging out and he can't control his size.
If he can walk while he's an inch tall, why can't he walk when he's 3 feet tall?
Also, why didn't he switch suits back when he got his old suit back? So he goes and he does all this work to get his old suit back. They get the little bit out of it that would allow them to track the thing. Why doesn't he just use the working suit instead of the crappy buggy one? Because didn't he later...
Because the crappy buggy one creates so much comedy.
Where was it at on like one part of him getting bigger while another part got smaller?
Like in
Bugging out
Deadpool?
like that?
Oh, that sounds horrifying.
I don't. Oh, I was
So you have like a
yeah,
real
they
big
didn't do
body
that.
with a tiny
With like a
head.
tiny little head? Oh, God. Or like he just have one giant arm.
Yeah.
I thought a good post-credit scene at the end would have been like him laying down with Hope, him having like a really tiny ass quantum dick. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Pev's mom.
Yeah, there it is.
I still think the ants are dumb.
Fucking Michael Pena DKP over here.
Speaking of, I think the best post-credit scene, I just want to get this out of the way now, would have been Michael Pena at home by himself in a suit with no powers, pretending to be like he has superpowers. Because that scene was like, I really like a suit. I mean, even if it has limited powers. I mean, even if it had no powers, it's just kind of like a suit. It looks really cool. I
think
thought
that
for
would've been
sure
awesome.
there's going to be a scene later, or it will be the post-credit scene. Instead of seeing the drumming ant the second time, it would have been him at home just wearing a suit with no powers. Just
I feel like that was
pretending to be
the
a
third
superhero.
time we saw that ant on the drums. Didn't we see it where he was like showed it on the phone?
They were very proud of the
Yes.
ant.
Yeah, they
were-
really, really wanted to like
Yeah.
hammer home that ant could play those drums.
It had Pym
Well, it's-
looking
it's-
on the phone.
well, it's Rock
It
Band.
had
Let's
the
just be-
ant, and it had the ant. So, but
Ants can't play real drums. Let's just be honest here, boys.
Those were real
But they were
drums. They were
playing
electronic.
They were
Alright,
playing rock.
But I
band.
laughed out loud when that ant was in the fucking
Bathtub.
I thought that was hilarious.
No, look at this ant
I
in the
thought
bathtub.
The ant was the worst part of part
Pep, I think
one,
me and you are
and
the
it did
only
not
people that
stop
don't
here.
hate the ants. They're goofy. They're
They are
stupid.
goofy.
I
100%.
Every single criticism that you have to say about it,
Completely
I will
valid.
not disagree with. But it did not annoy me as much as like
In fact-
other shit in the movie.
In fact,
I
I,
just
would
think
say when they had the scene from them, which is the black and white
Yeah,
at the very end,
the-
where the thing,
Roddy Piper? That's They Live. I'm an asshole.
So when they had the scene at the end with that ant, my first thought was, wow, those ants look so much better than the ants that were in this movie. Even so, I still enjoyed the ants. And I liked the way the ants showed up and carried Ant-Man around.
My favorite part with the ants, or I would say the only part I liked with the ants, is when they kept getting eaten.
I see.
Oh my God!
That part was hilarious. Dude, it was hilarious. He just kept falling off. And...
That was a little bit of a Chewbacca eating a porg scene for me.
I was wanting him to punch a seagull.
I thought they were gonna make Antonio.
Yeah. He named it, and then it immediately gets eaten.
Ulysses S.
died.
Grant. Yeah, those are good parts.
There were like inconsistencies with the timeline of like, when does all this take place, and why aren't they off helping Avengers and all this kind of stuff, but like that stuff doesn't bother me. It just like doesn't.
What
bother
about
me.
the post-credit scene one?
Yeah.
Are we in
gonna-
context, we're going
are
to
we
talk about the
supposed to talk-
post-credit
okay.
scene. Yeah. Well, we still have all of our segments. But all that timeline stuff and all these like plot holes, that stuff like didn't really bother me throughout the movie. I think it was just tonally and just like the general like lack of interest I had. When it was funny, it was funny. When it wasn't funny, but trying to be funny, I was kind of annoyed. And then the shrinking stuff is still fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had so many really great scenes of them shrinking or growing, or like the scene where Wasp was like the car chase scene was really great, how she kept shrinking and like would like jump through the windows and stuff like that. Just I thought that scene was fucking awesome.
I hated that scene.
I love that scene.
I thought that was the only good scene in the movie.
All I could think of was this. Why, for the love of fucking Christ,
Would you ever grow again?
well, it's like, well, we can easily get away, but she's like, wait, I gotta have a chase scene with Walton Goggins. Let's get big. And then, like, she shrinks and they go off, like, the cliff, like lemmings, basically, or the San Francisco fucking street, or San Diego, whatever it is. And then she's like,
San Francisco.
better get big again so everyone can see. It's like, that's all I was thinking was, like, if you were trying to save your fucking mother, who has, like, 20 minutes to live to come back to Earth, and everyone else is in danger.
Are you going to be fucking around like this?
And this is fucking stupid.
It was clearly made for visual effects. The way that it was shot.
Angry.
If you were, if you really had those powers, you would just shrink and then turn into the nearest shoebox and just wait.
See, in the first Ant-Man, though, we got a lot of that shit. It was all kind of different stuff, and it was fun and interesting. This one, the number of times I saw them shrink that fucking car in broad daylight in front of nobody was annoying to me. He shrank. They fought on a train track in the first one. What was that?
Yeah,
that was fun.
All the shrinking scenes. The
him
first
going
one
through the
were great.
lasers, through computer chips and shit. That was all. That was great. This
Yeah.
one was like, we shrink cars. Then we
How
don't.
they all went in a Hot Wheels box, I thought was awesome.
I thought that was great. And so what I also enjoyed was Pym shrinking his building that first time. Now, I will agree that they
That
kind of
first
turned
time,
it into
yes,
a
that
hot
first time it was
potato
great.
and blah, blah. But that first time when he just shrunk it and walked off with it, truly satisfying.
We got to get that tiny building.
Let me ask you guys this legitimately. So maybe I feel like this is a plot point that they explained it, but I missed. Why didn't they just shrink the building and he shrinks himself and works inside of it and does everything from inside of it? If you can drive a car, if combustion works at that little bitty tiny level to propel a car, like
I bet Taylor knows the answer to this.
It
I
had to be a
think I know
certain
the answer
size.
too.
It had to be a certain size for the signal to.
fine.
It'll
Then
trace
how
the
about like
bomb.
while you're doing everything else, just stay shrunk?
So that would be a good way, but in the comic, the way they do it is that you can't shrink someone and then shrink more inside that thing. You
They
have
did
to
it in a
have-
car.
you
Why
have
couldn't
to
they
have
do it in a building?
consistency. Well, no, like when you shrink into the car, you can't then unshrink the building in the car, or you can't shrink something in the car again.
No. I mean, like if you just have the building and you're like, all right, Scott, just put this in your attic. We're gonna work in this little bitty fucking
Yes,
building in your attic.
100%. That's the way. But
Until we're ready, like when we need to, like shit hits the fan.
So,
if there's something
in
they
the
gotta
comic
do.
book, they were like, they were making that portal. Like that portal wouldn't work while it was shrunk. And in fact, in this movie, they talk about
build
how,
it shrunk, and then when you have to initiate it,
No, I
go blow
think,
it up.
I think you. Yes.
Idefy.
I think
Idefy.
I think it has to do with the reference in the first movie where he was saying he can't. The Hank Pym was saying that he can't shrink too much because it causes some issue with his brain.
I thought that was only when you
think
into
that
the
was the
quantum
reason
realm.
why he couldn't be shrinking so much. Because most of the shrinking
No.
scenes are actually Wasp and Ant-Man. You hardly ever see Hank Pym do it.
In fact, Hank Pym had to wear the cop outfit when they escaped from the thing because he couldn't be shrunk because his
Exactly.
body had gone through it too much.
No, I
The only
understand
time
that.
he did it was to save.
Which
his
explains
wife.
why he can't stay shrunken.
Right.
in the
It doesn't
small
explain
lab.
why they shit all over the the disguise in the first scene about looking like you're going to a baseball game.
I think you
Good
just
line,
find a good hiding, like a good place to hide.
Yeah.
But then he walks out with the same costume, walks out of jail with it.
And don't get me wrong, I know they found a good place to hide, and then he told Michael Pena where they were, and then Michael Pena had some truth serum. Like, there's a lot of it worked or whatever.
Those
but
are
it just
those are
wasn't-
whatevers though.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get it.
But you see, though, like if they would have just cut out half of the repetitive shit that's in the movie and just
Yeah.
explained that bit of dialogue again, I think that would have worked.
Perfect, because like that's one of the things. Like, how many times do we have to see Scott Lang, Paul Rudd go home and pretend he's at home? It was absurd. I felt like I was watching fucking Groundhog's Day, and it's like, but wait, when that's happening, where's the building? Like, it was a mess. I was like having trouble keeping track of like where shit was at one time, who had it, when did he have to be at home.
So
Like-
my problem with that is that I cared more about the Scott Lang story of him and his daughter than any other story in this movie. And so when he went back to that, I was like, oh, good. Now we're back to the stuff I care about. And so it was much. I was okay with them doing that because that's the part I was.
No, it
interested
wasn't.
in.
It wasn't that I disliked those scenes. It was like by the time it was like, all right, now let's suddenly immediately hop back into action like you never left. Like, where do we leave off at? Who's got who's got the thing, and why do? Okay, do we have time to go? It was a fucking mess.
Absolutely.
There was no villain in this movie. It was all like they had one job that was like, we got to go into the quantum realm, and there was just people being like, not so fast, over and over until they did it.
There was something
That was it.
there was something that someone said on Reddit.
You
And
said
I
you were
wasn't
going to
gonna
quote
read
it. Could you do it?
Yeah, but
He even, like, wrinkled it up.
Yes, I unwrinkled it. So Zodiah on the Marvel Studios Reddit said this. They said everyone felt neutral in this. Scott, Pym, Ghost, Sonny, FBI. It was a bunch of neutrals doing neutral stuff. No good guys, no bad guys,
Yeah, that's
just
true.
neutrals. And I was like, yeah.
That actually describes basically exactly what I fucking feel about this movie.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, this is a great
Nailed
Reddit
it.
comment.
It was very good.
Thank you.
Sounds similar to what I said about Ghost earlier.
It does.
But that's the thing, like, it doesn't make any sense. She wants to murder Hank, I keep wanting to say Hank fucking Pym. She wants to murder Paul Rudd's daughter. Like, it was gonna murder her in cold blood.
No, she wanted to kidnap her and use her as leverage.
She said, like, he can be hurt in other ways. And like,
Right.
talking
He
about
wants
that.
to kidnap her and use her as leverage, and then decides not to.
Not decides
She
not to.
gets
Basically
threatened
gets
into it.
forced. Yeah, forced not to.
And then at the end, she's finally like, "Oh no, I'm afraid."
Now I'm a
and
good guy.
scared."
Everybody heal me with your
Yeah,
healing juice.
Everyone
Michelle
care.
Pfeiffer.
Everyone care about me and help me. It was
I
like,
will say that
no,
they didn't have a good
Your
transformation
quantum
for her.
jizz.
Get your quantum juice all over me, please.
Scott, Paul Rudd, I need you to go into a different universe and
Why-
get that top notch.
Why does your quantum juice smell like this?
Because I smoke cigarettes, I drink too much, I don't have a great diet, and I'm not very active.
In the quantum realm?
I wonder
Yeah,
if that's laboratory
that's
grade
That's what
quantum.
he would say.
I'm
You know what I'm
curious
talking about,
where
boys?
you're
I
at
know
with this
what you're
movie.
talking about.
So I did like the movie, but boy, there are a lot of issues with it. The positives of it is it's a fun movie, and I've said this with other movies. It's not as strong with this one, but this movie is about Wasp, and like some of the other movies are to introduce that character. This one's about Wasp, but at the same time, I liked Evangeline Lilly, but the stakes for the introduction of the character are not there. You always know she's gonna get what she wants. You know she's gonna free her mother. And no way when watching this movie did I ever feel like they weren't gonna succeed in their mission. It was just kind of like what Peb saying was about the French thing. It's just kind of like just a coincidence of everybody needing to do this one thing, and it was just there were no stakes. Villain wasn't a villain. And no way was she ever intimidating. She's borderline teeting on horrible fucking person about to kidnap Scott's daughter, but then you're supposed to feel sympathetic for her because she's
Well,
she
and
was
is
a
also
kid.
just going to kill a mother who's been kill a lady who's supposedly been trapped in what could be hell for 30 years or an eternity. Like, I'll fucking whack her when she gets out. Fuck her.
I didn't understand that. Like,
Exactly.
Why was Michelle Pfeiffer so affected?
And with the
They
quantum
did a bad
realm,
job of telling that
Yeah,
story.
I didn't understand why they.
for a MacGuffin that is supposed to be so fucking important to the future of the possible
movie was
next
MacGuffin Central, by the
MCU,
way.
and for what everything that Hank's been researching, you can't give us a little more exposition? I mean, I don't want to hear all the different at-name jokes. I want to know what the fuck the quantum realm is. I want to know how people are affected by it. I want to know what quantum jizz is, but none of that.
Give me that
and
quantum
and
jizz,
it's
baby.
and where Doctor Strange worked so well and this didn't, you kind of understood what Doctor Strange is going through in the different time parallels.
Well, and the idea
visual-
is that it's mysterious.
Yeah, I was
You're
about
not
to say,
supposed
Exactly.
to know.
So the idea of it like had this feeling. It gave you this feeling when you were watching things happen.
But what they did is they had him learning and
Yeah.
failing and then trying again and getting it right. And what that did is it taught the audience what the rules of his mystical arts
This
were.
one was just like, hey,
and
we
they didn't-
quantum realm now.
They didn't give us
You know
any
what I mean?
rules for
Quantum
this.
realming, baby.
They didn't
And-
give us any rules or
No, 100% correct. And like a waste of characters. You could have taken out 2 of these characters and just focused on Ghost as the main one, and I have a feeling we would have gotten a way better movie. Instead, they
Idefy, I
wanted
want
to
you
bring
to
in...
watch this part in the YouTube video where I say "fuck you." No, don't have Ghost as the main character.
I'd be okay with
No,
that.
no, no.
But you
So
know
if
what?
they would've
You're
taken
absolutely
out
right.
Walt
They're going
Goggins,
to though.
and because he was such a pointless character, make her
should-
more the central story. Get rid of Lawrence Fishburne because he was a waste of a character as well. I don't care that he was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. None of that affected what was going on. None of it.
Howard.
I did enjoy the dick size comparison or the growth size
Yeah.
comparison.
How
I
big
thought that
did
was
you get?
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
Now
funny,
that's
I
all
just
fun.
said Terrence Howard and that you said that.
No, it's true.
So, with those being said, where this movie shines is its comedy. I mean, as repetitive some of the jokes were, no, they weren't Taserface line, but they were funny. Just, some of the Michael Pena stuff worked, not all of it. The Baba Yaga stuff. But then again, like, after the impact of Infinity War and just how everybody felt after that movie, this was a breath of fresh air coming back into. They could have told the story better, and that would have really worked for me, but it was good for what it was.
I wasn't ready for that breath of fresh air. I wanted to be deep down in that Infinity War for a long time.
Oh, I don't think this, at least for me, for me, it has nothing to do with Infinity War. As someone who just watched, now 20 Marvel movies within the last year, it's unprecedented for anything. I've never done it 20 times anything in the last year. Except for one thing, so you know what I'm saying? Get it? Give me them ribs. But, no, and there's been this whole podcast has been ups and downs. This movie was so much fun to rewatch. This one was a fucking chore to sit through. I've never seen a Marvel movie one time except for this one, where the first time watching it, I was like, I want this to be over. This is the first. This is the
I had
first
the same
one.
feeling. It was one where I was like, okay, I adore these movies so much that they're like in my bloodstream. I want to watch them, especially like my favorite ones. Like, you throw Captain America Winter Soldier on any time, it's like Forrest Gump. Like, I will sit down and watch that movie. But while watching this movie, I was dreading watching this movie again. I was thinking, like, man, I don't really want to watch
I don't think I'll ever
Ant-Man
watch
and
this
the Wasp.
movie again.
I mean, I'll definitely watch it again, but because of my love of the MCU, not because of my love of the movie, which is disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not a watch movies twice sort of guy unless it's there's a couple specific films. There's Goodfellas and Casino and Clockwork Orange or whatever, Shining. I'll watch 500 times and everything
Movie
else.
about
everything
delinquents.
else only gets one watch. And like I said, as far as Marvel movies, they were perfect because I've only watched basically all of them only once and enjoyed them in theaters. And it was it wasn't as good as whatever, but it was fun. I didn't know what was going to happen.
We all know you watch iBoy every night before you go to bed.
Hell yeah, I do.
I think for
This one was
as
miserable.
powerful as Infinity War was, and as dark as it was, I think Marvel definitely needed a lighter movie to come out and end their year. And I think this was the perfect movie to do that.
I'm a fan of a lighter movie to come off of something hot, but I'm also a fan of a good movie.
Yeah, I was about to say it was.
Yeah,
too
like I
light.
said, Tasty had the same thing he said, where he said that he thinks that in one way or another we were comparing it either in quality or in tone, and like somehow Infinity War affected how Major Tom and I perceive this movie. I was not thinking about Infinity War until the very end of it. I was
I don't
thinking
know
about
how
the
you
first
can.
Ant-Man.
So
I mean, why would I? I was thinking about the first Ant-Man.
I
This
mean,
takes
but-
place obviously before it. Why the fuck would I care about Infinity War?
And I don't mean to harp back on Infinity War, but that movie is a fucking game changer in the MCU. So, like, anything after it, you're going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Dude, yeah, kind of, but then it's like
But that's
they'll
the problem is
return,
this
and
movie
you know
isn't
they
after
will.
it.
Like, there's the whole bit. I'm not taking it that fucking serious because you know that money's involved. All these actors are coming back. 90% of them are. It's not that big a deal. It was rough to see it on screen, but like, the bitch is gonna be in a movie next summer. Fucking Spider-Man again.
Yeah.
What are you gonna go back?
We're
to
a year
junior
away
high?
from Spider-Man.
Way to fucking burst
you know,
everybody's
it's
bubble.
not it's not a
DKP.
huge fucking problem. And like, no, I did not even think about Infinity War one time while watching this until the post-credits scene. I was thinking about the first Ant-Man and how much I liked that one.
Yeah.
And I was trying to say, what are they doing different and what went wrong? Why am I hating my time here? And why
I
is
will say
Tasty
it
having
was-
a seizure beside me?
it was no Ragnarok.
For
Like
sure.
Ragnarok was fun and it
Yeah.
was a good movie and it
Yeah.
was funny. This was no Ragnarok. But it also didn't offend me the way that it.
I was deeply offended.
I was pretty offended,
I was-
and I'm not like legit offended. I'm
triggered,
just
you know what
I'm
I'm saying?
sad.
Triggered.
I'm always sad when there's a movie in the MCU that I'm not in love with, and that offends me. Festus, what did you think? I know you kind of. Was there anything that we haven't said yet that you wanted to add to it?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the things. Go start off, Minister. Oh, she was really. I don't know, man. The comedy just wasn't there for me. Like, and I really wanted it to be. But I thought they relied heavily too much on stuff from the past, and I thought the
in
action
the
was easily
now.
the weakest action from any Marvel movie, hands down. To be honest.
Dude, just how long they spent with her being invisible, driving the car and kicking through, like,
That stuff was
It-
awesome.
dude, okay, look, okay, we moved on. And I just want to say, like, I'm not gonna harp on this for long. Just want to get out of the way. It didn't follow the rules of the first movie,
No, it didn't.
and that annoyed the shit out of me. As far as like when they told Paul Rudd's character, there's two Ant-Man, so I can't stop saying fucking Hank Pym.
Mhm.
So sorry, I'm just
Not
gonna call him
Hank
Paul Rudd.
Pym, it's not that hard.
Yeah, you're right. Anyways.
Scott Lang.
So they were like, hey, look, yeah, your force, it's like an ant. Like you retain the force of a human as something that's like pin size. The whole movie, like no one could see him. Like when he shrunk down, they're like, oh, where the fuck did he go? He's the size, I don't know. It's like something of an ant, perhaps.
Nailed it.
And like when he was punching people, like, you'd see nothing, and they'd be punched across the room, and it was from excessive force. And they said like, well, don't fuck up too bad, because it's centralized between something so small, like you could punch a hole through somebody.
Yeah.
And this one, they're trying to kill a lot of people, or at least really incapacitate them, Ghost specifically. And there was one particular sequence where Wasp would shrink, dodge, grow,
And
do a
then
regular
kick.
punch, then go back, and then be like, none of these are going to be that big a deal. Then, even the scene in the kitchen at the very beginning with Wasp,
I like
everyone was
that.
shooting at her like they saw her. If Ant-Man in the beginning was like, this whole point, he's the size of a goddamn ant. He's tiny.
In
This
her
one, it's like everyone knew where the fuck they
Like
were at
that
all
chandelier
times.
Chandelier
she's
scene.
got wings, man. I can see
She's
a
a
flying
wasp. She's not
bugs.
an ant.
I can see flying
can
bugs
see
way
wasps.
better than I could see a floating little ant. But
Yeah.
one of my other problems I had with the movie, why the hell was Ghost so strong? Like they never
She
explained.
was trained, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but she
she
was
was a
like she
shield
was
member.
punching Ant-Man through walls. Like, where,
there was that one time where she
like,
punched
where
the
did it
shit
explain?
out of
Yeah,
him.
like, where did it explain that she was like superhuman strength?
They could have definitely done better of explaining
Like,
her powers.
There was that scene where he was
She
clearly on a
literally
wire,
punched
like
him
being
through a
pulled
wall.
through rooms.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
I got a
about
hot take for you as well. If
Lay it on me.
the second that Scott Lang hits the quantum whatever, the metaverse, the bullshit verse in the first one, he gets the implant in his brain from Hank Pym's wife.
Mhm.
That's like, hey, here's my echolocation, here's some
Forgot
Morse
about that
code.
stupid shit.
Now you have somebody who has been phasing in and out of it for like 30 years. Now, if you said to me like, well, maybe she wasn't all the way in, or maybe it was like spontaneous because she's phasing in and out, I would kind of believe it. But then you get to the point where it's like, well, Michelle Pfeiffer's a deity. She should kind of make that gap happen. Why was it that Scott Lang was the only person that she reached out to and was like, hey, can you tell him to come pick me up? I'm fucking getting cold out here. Come
And
scoop me up.
I would say it was a little annoying that she was able to possess Scott and then use a modern computer
Dude,
with
that when she
complete elegance. That was
when she
a
said,
little hard to
hold
believe.
on, I gotta do the algorithm. I was like,
not the algorithm.
I had you remember Jurassic Park where he says, "Oh, this is Unix. I know how to use this." I had that sort of a feeling.
it was like they're two people on the same keyboard. Like, we gotta beat this hacker. It's like, come on.
Scott
can
being
type
possessed is
faster.
pretty funny though.
I
I thought
enjoyed the part
it
where
was
she was talking to her. I actually think that
Dude.
Michelle Pfeiffer had more emotion when she was being Scott than when she was actually
Paul
being
Rudd's
herself.
acting, yeah.
No, Paul Rudd did well, but I was like, I ain't fucking buying it. That, like, in 30 years, you haven't had any contact. You don't know if they're still alive, and you're like, hold on, I gotta do the algorithm, bruh. Like, you're not, and then she has to be distracted to be like, oh, good to see you, by the way, man. It's been a while. Fuck. All right. Anyways, I'm sorry, man. I'll talk to you later. All right.
What did she eat in the quantum
I
realm?
wasn't fucking buying it, man. Like,
I don't know what she
those
needed to
whale
eat.
things. You don't think she hunted those whale things?
No, I think she was able to sustain her own life. But that's the
Tardigrades.
problem is I don't know. I'm just making an assumption.
They should have just made her
Not
not
just,
age.
like, touched her
I'm
fingers
telling you,
and
those
something like,
tardigrades, all they did was put makeup on people. It just went around to
When they
everybody
were-
they could find.
That's why
and
Mi-
put
Michael
Michelle
Douglas
Pfeiffer
is like,
makeup on them.
I gotta get out of here.
I gotta get out
My-
of here. It's gonna,
my-
that tardigrade's gonna put makeup on me.
There's no way I'm getting fake eyelashes on this ship. that was the conflict of the movie, which sounds more interesting
I was
than,
about to say,
to me than
I'd
what we
see
got.
that movie.
You know, I'm just grateful that I got an invitation.
All right, let's score this bad boy. Unless anybody has anything else.
I've got a lot, but no.
Can I start?
It can't.
Yes, start us out.
I'm gonna start with a 7.6.
All right. We're gonna go around the table, which means Idefy, you will go right after Festus. I'm gonna
Okay.
go 6.4.
I'm giving this movie a 3.
Really?
I did not like it.
That's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I was gonna say that's Guardians of the Galaxy 2 Pebiv
So,
scores.
You know how I felt when you were like, the moment I saw Kurt Russell in a convertible, which is like,
at what
like
minute
6
mark
seconds
did
into
you
the film,
not
you're like, I
this movie?
despise this film. I think around the monologue with Ghost,
At
I was
what
like,
minute, please?
this is fucking stupid.
Hold on, just real quick. As soon as you came over, you're like, because we all watched the movie together, except for Idefy, who's in L.A. We all watched the movie together, and afterwards, you were like, what did you think? And I said, I hated it. And you're like, I hated it too. And then we were talking about how we hated it. When you came in the house today, you're like, do you still hate it? And I was like, I more hate that I didn't love it than I... And you're like, I don't really hate it anymore.
No, I left the theater feeling pissed off yesterday. I yelled at my wife in the car.
Oh man!
Like, not at her, just like
Yeah.
I was talking about the movie and getting so just like annoyed with it that I was yelling, and she was like, "Yeah, I liked it," and I was like, "Victoria, I know, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just fucking upset at the. I don't get it."
Oh.
And like I've calmed down is what I mean. Like I don't despise this movie.
3.
Oh, I didn't
I
even
did
go
not
to
have a
the
good
movie
time
with
with
you,
it.
and I knew you fucking hated this movie.
He's like,
You could feel it from LA.
How will he ever recover?
How will he ever recover?
He could feel like, ugh. There's a ripple in the force. 3.
Festus.
4.5, man. Like,
Damn.
talking about
This
it
might
on
be our
here,
average
Talking
lowest
about it
score.
on here made me realize like it was worse.
Dude, Ant-Man, like the original was one of my favorite fucking Marvel movies.
I had no desire to see Ant-Man 1, and then I didn't see it in theaters, and when I saw it on TV, I was so pissed. myself.
That's what you were
For
saying when we
not
were
seeing it
sitting
in theaters.
down.
I really liked Ant-Man 1, and had high hopes for this.
All right, we got the man behind the curtain scored 2 after Idefy. Let's hear yours.
7.5. For as important as the quantum realm is going to be, this movie could have gone out of the way to explain what the fuck is going on with it.
Agreed.
And
Let me
is
put it
not
this
better
way.
than the first Ant-Man. In fact, you can watch the first Ant-Man and skip this one entirely.
Well, yeah, I would recommend it.
As of now,
But-
maybe in the future that'll.
And
change.
the
Correct,
Doctor
as of now.
Strange, like, I forget what they call it. That's going to be very important, too, for what they eventually want to do. But I never left being like, what the fuck is that bullshit?
I mean,
Are
this
you
is the
talking
thing.
about
If-
the mirror realm?
Yes, or, just the mystic arts in general.
I know.
I hope that the next Infinity War movie does not rehash the quantum realm. I know they're going to have to explain it. That's not what I want out of the next Infinity War. It's not.
I think it's going to be a really. I think there will be a resolution to
Yeah,
Ant-Man
me
being
too.
stuck in the quantum realm in under 2 minutes.
Yep.
I think it'll be like done super quick.
I'm waiting. Well, I think that the very first thing they'll say is, we need a capsule of quantum jizz. And somebody is going to say, oh, Ant-Man's got one.
I read a very brief
Let's go rescue him.
theory that I think for sure is going to happen. Should we talk about that or should we leave it?
Is it related to the post-credit scene?
Yes.
Okay, we'll save it. You can mention it at the end of the show.
Hold on
Tasty,
real quick. Yeah, I was gonna say, Tasty. Man behind the curtain.
The man behind the curtain.
Wizard of Oz.
I do want to say, like, we've obviously all talked to him outside of this show, and you guys have not gotten an opportunity to hear his opinions. I mean, his score is going to say a lot about it, but he did like this movie quite a bit and had really strong positive opinions towards it. So, I want to make
Tasty's
sure,
making the
although he
ultimate
doesn't have an
sacrifice
opportunity
tonight.
to get on the mic. Yeah, he's
He
making a
really
big
liked the
sacrifice.
movie, but he said, I think arguing with you assholes, I'm going to get too pissed off. I don't want to make your show worse. I will just sit out and you can throw in this fucking dickhead over here.
And this dickhead they did throw in.
Yes. What's your score?
8.5. Wow, you were the
Thanks,
high
Tasty.
score.
I get a message from DKP yesterday. He's like, if you give this movie a 10 Idefy, I'm going to be so fucking mad at you.
That's not what I said. I said, Idefy, if you give this movie a 10, I'm legitimately going to lose a lot of respect for you as a person. And I mean that. And when he said I won't, I was like, okay, good.
So
We
yeah,
can still be friends.
that's it for our review. Thank you guys. It was quite a lengthy conversation. We still have a little bit more to go, but this part's usually quick. It's time for Secrets of the Marvel Universe. I bet we can make it sound badass in post.
Universe.
Number 1.
Universe.
During
That
Scott's
was post.
during Scott's house arrest, he's watching Animal House. Specifically the scene where Donald Sutherland says, "Our whole solar system could be like one tiny atom in the fingernail of some other giant being."
I love Animal House.
How great would it have been if they'd have walked in, that ant was jerking itself off. So the couch has got the little tissues there and it's like wrapped up in the bath.
Be jerking off to that ant movie that was on the TV earlier.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that.
Number 2, in Iron Man 2, when Tony begins looking for a breakthrough to both cure his illness and make Iron Man more powerful than ever, he cites the Goliath Project. He asks Jarvis, his AI assistant, to tap the Oracle grid. "I need things out of storage. Give me everything from Project Pegasus, Exodus, and Goliath."
This secret brought to you by Oracle Instruments.
I want everything from Project Horse, Stars, Moons, Rainbows, and Balloons. Okay?
Number 3, in the comics, Scott starts a business called Ant-Man Security Solutions. As an expert in stealing stuff, Scott reasoned he was the best in the business to make it so one stuff couldn't be stolen in the first place. The movie version tweaks the name to be a little bit more subtle. Ex-con Security Consultants.
I actually
instead
kind
of
of like that.
Ant-Man.
I got a really quick one I don't think is probably on there. Did you know Hank Pym, Ant-Man, was kind of made famous for domestic violence
He's
in the
doing it.
comics? It was actually a very monumental moment that was able to open that dialogue that beating your spouse is bad. I thought that was good.
Number
Every time I see
4.
Michael Douglas, I think, like, did that happen in the past year?
Number 4.
Did he beat her into the quantum verse?
During the scene where they visit Goliath while he's teaching, you can see the
Very
word
different movie.
Matrix on the chalkboard next to
Oh my
Lawrence
God.
Fishburne's
Oh,
character.
I
that's
did not
hilarious.
notice that. Might
Number-
have made the movie a little bit better.
Just real quick, Peb, I am correct there, right? I'm not just making that shit up to be insensitive.
No,
you're correct.
You are correct.
They used to hit Janet Pym.
but it was sort of like it was really painfully done, I thought, because they looked at Iron Man and they said, "Hey, making
He's an
Iron Man a
alcoholic."
drunk was a
Yeah.
huge success. Can we do this with some of these other characters?"
Pim's gonna beat his wife.
Hey,
that is the
Pim,
wrong
beat your
step
wife.
to take.
You know, it wasn't handled the way I
Did you know
would
that,
have liked
Tommy?
No, I didn't.
Interesting trivia, huh?
Number 5. Number 5. Cassie talks about wanting to be her dad's partner. In the comics, she exposes herself to Pym particles regularly in hopes to become a superhero.
Ew.
After Scott Lang dies, she grows to the size of Giant Man and becomes a character by the name of Stature. And then her name later changes to Stinger. So she is... Maybe we'll see her in 20 years.
No, wait, who is this? His daughter?
His daughter. Cassie.
I'm totally down with her like being Ant-Man equivalent sidekick. But the whole
I
thing
think
of
that
like
would
I've
actually
been
be a good-
exposing myself to your Pym particles for years and I've
I think
become in
actually that'd
stature
be a
than
good next
Stinger.
Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, I would really like him having to rescue his daughter who thinks that she's like a superhero.
Why doesn't she just become
Yeah.
Man Thing? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
like
until
that,
we get the
Pev?
Fantastic Four.
Number 6. Sonny Birch has an inside man in the FBI by the name of Jeffrey Ballard. In the comics, Ballard took the name Centurion as an enemy of Iron Man and Goliath.
I super didn't
word.
care about him.
Number 7. Jimmy Woo is a secret agent and eventually goes on to joining S.H.I.E.L.D. Then he joins Agents of Atlas, and he eventually becomes the headmaster of a superhero school in Mumbai.
I was wondering if they were going to turn him into another Coulson.
I could see it. That'd be cool.
See, Coulson had self-awareness.
And this guy doesn't.
This guy was really. I don't know. I just don't think he got it. But
Oh, no.
No, he was
it wasn't what you
fantastic
thought.
though. He was
He
so,
killed it.
so
Yeah, he was
funny.
great. Number 8. During the scene where they go to Cassie's school, Scott and Hope are standing in front of chalkboards with sentences for the students to copy. It's like, write this sentence. One of the camera shots shows my ants grow, perfectly positioned between Ant-Man and Wasp. Number 9. The movie with giant ants they're watching during the drive-in scene is a 1954 film called...
Them.
Yeah, you referenced it a couple of times. Number 10. When his daughter and ex-wife are watching the news about Scott at the Bay, he's officially identified on the news as Giant Man. It's the first time in the MCU that he's been called Giant Man.
Cool.
Yep. And then the final one, number 11. Although they haven't been found yet, Marvel has confirmed that there are tons of Easter eggs in the quantum realm scenes. The quantum realm scenes.
Like you have to break down the kaleidoscope stuff. And
Yes.
remember when we had
Yes.
Dormammu
Good
show up as
Lord,
a
I
big
gotta
weird
watch this
looking
again.
face? Let's do that again.
That's like their incentive to get you to watch this movie again.
Right.
Like, we know it sucks, but trust us, there's a lot of
Dude,
Easter eggs in the quantum realm. Just go back and watch.
Imagine if they said that shit to Tommy back when he, on his own volition, saw what Infinity War 6 times.
4 times, but it was within 6 days.
Is it only 4 times?
I only saw it 4 times.
I thought it was more than that.
No,
We
I
went
wanted
and
to
saw
see it
one
way
night
more.
and then
I
right
also
back
thought
to
it was
back.
more.
That was badass.
Yeah, and yeah,
it seemed like you
I
were
can't-
seeing it
I
like
cannot
every
wait till it
hour
comes out.
for a while.
Oh, dude.
You
I-
came over to my house
I
quite a few
absolutely
times. Like,
would.
I just got it. Just saw Infinity War again. I was like, again? Are you
Yeah,
fucking?
that
Are you,
whole
are
week
you
it was
kidding?
just like
Yeah,
that.
that entire week. I
How do you
just
not
watched
get to
Infinity
the
War.
halfway point and you realize like, oh my god, I've got
Dude, it's like
I've
like
got
I said,
that much
it's like,
more to go.
It's like Winter Soldier, Forrest Gump.
It
If it's
passes
on, I'm
through.
watching it.
Don't you fucking
We're
dare!
getting
to
a
Flies
piss me
by
fucking
off.
when you watch
Thanos
that.
cut.
Yeah, there's going to be a Thanos cut that
I
Idefy
can't
sent me
wait.
about
They
yesterday.
add 30
Add an
minutes.
extra 30 minutes that
Yep.
focuses on Thanos' backstory.
We need
See,
this to be
Tab,
3
I
hours
speak,
long.
my
that's going to
complaint.
resolve our
Yes,
issue
yeah.
with that
Yeah,
movie.
I think it would too.
Yeah.
And that's
think
it
it
for
would.
Secrets of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, crazy stupid fun.
Let's talk about our friend Stanlee.
I really enjoyed this.
This
one.
is
Cameo
my
in
wife
this
said
one.
this
It's
is
good.
her favorite Stanlee cameo.
I agree with her.
The one with him at the
Idefy
titty bar I
agrees with
thought
you,
was
Elizabeth.
better. Where he's like, "Now welcome chastity."
That's
I
my favorite.
liked that
One of my
one,
favorites.
but this one was good.
So during the car chase scene, Stanlee is standing next to his car when it shrinks down, and he's like, "I had a good time in the '60s."
But I'm paying for it now.
And he was like,
The
"Oh
'60s
no,
were fun. I'm sure paying for it now.
oh no, my money and my fortune. Where did it go?"
And that's it.
Mm.
Great cameo.
I would say I was a little sad because he seems a lot older in this than he's seen in cameos.
Yeah.
And I'm not like trying to like diss on Stanlee or anything. It's just like it made me realize.
I'm gonna
Yesterday-
shit on him for getting older.
Yesterday was the
Sure.
one. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of his wife passing away. So I can
It-
imagine that will age you big time.
Yeah.
Not only that, Steve Ditko passed away too.
It's time for the post-credits get out your fucking checkbook moment.
Get out your fucking checkbook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had two scenes, a mid-credit scene. The mid-credit scene was Hank, Janet, Hope, and Scott are going back to specifically they're sending Scott to the quantum realm to get more quantum juice for Ava.
Almost like you said Back to the Future.
Maybe. After Scott completes his mission, he tells the others he's ready to come back. After a few seconds of radio silence, the camera shifts to outside the quantum realm, and we see that Hank, Janet, and Hope are now all
right.
ash.
So here's the deal. When I walked into this movie, I said, I bet the last scene in this movie is gonna be some of the main characters turning into ash, and bam!
And I said, at least one of them won't.
He did. He said at least one of them won't. I said it would be all three, and nope.
So let me tell you, I normally don't watch movies at night at theaters just because I really hate the audiences when they go. This was probably the one time I actually really enjoyed it. When fucking Scott's calling them and then they're not responding, and then you see the dust, the audience lost their fucking shit. I was like, okay, this makes it worth it.
Yeah, I heard, read online that people were like gasping.
I think we read the same Reddit thread, perhaps, even on our Marvel or whatever, because I was like, someone has to feel the same way I do. I have to find somebody. I'm not crazy. Besides you.
The ending will rock your world.
Who still leaves during a Marvel movie, though? Come on, people.
People who don't care about Marvel.
Well, we
movies.
were in the very last seats.
People
so we
after
could see
watching
everybody.
Ant-Man and Wasp.
And then we did
Right,
get.
they're like, just get me out of
By
here.
the way, those were actually really good seats.
Yeah,
It was weird the way it worked out.
I had a good time. I like those scenes. And then finally the post-credit scene.
Your favorite scene of the movie, right?
Yeah, you're
Dude,
so
it was
glad you
hilarious
waited
because we
for
were
it.
talking about we were talking about the movie during the credits, and we're all giving our opinions and everything. We were sitting in the theater talking, and you were like, "What'd you think of the ants in this one?" And then I started talking about how terrible they were, and then like
Festus,
as I'm
literally-
talking
he
about
goes-
it, you
he
look
goes,
up.
No, he goes, "What? You're saying you didn't like that ant playing the drums?"
And I was like, "No." And then it immediately played the post-credit scene of
With the ant playing
And
the
then-
drums.
It was that for like
It was
what
like
the
this
fourth
perfectly
time?
encapsulates how I felt about this movie.
Yeah, that was great.
Anybody have any final thoughts before we close this bad boy
I do.
out?
I got one thing.
One more.
The
Go for it.
fucking special effects on Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer when they're young.
Oh, yeah. They're Benjamin
incredible.
Button aging is
They're
awesome.
Benjamin
Like,
Button.
it's
getting
getting
Even
better.
way better than a younger Robert Downey.
Yeah, dude.
They say
Michelle
they're-
Pfeiffer looked great.
They say they're gonna do Jackson for Captain Marvel.
Sam Jackson?
Man, that's gonna be what's up.
They're gonna make him
That's
25
amazing. And
years
Because he's
younger.
in Captain Marvel.
Well,
He's
Because
also
the movie
got
takes
two
place in the
eyes.
90s.
Thomas, don't you know black don't crack? Look at Sam Jack. It's not going to be difficult for him.
He's also got two eyes.
That
so-
motherfucker has looked about the same age forever. He's killing it.
I'm hoping Captain Marvel shoots one of his eyes out when she gets her powers.
I would like to see that.
I hope it's something rowdy.
I got a couple of final thoughts that I'm just going to rattle through in about 10 seconds. I don't want to talk about them at all. Plot holes.
No rape,
Why
please.
wasn't it Hank Pym's wife who went into the Quantumverse to get the fucking healing jizz? The timeline for when they disappeared doesn't make sense. Why
You're
wouldn't he
out
have
of
a way to
time,
bring them
dog.
out?
You're out of time.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it for this
That bugged the
episode
shit out
of
of me.
Preparation Avengers. Join us next time where we will be reviewing Captain Marvel.
Ooh la la.
Don't forget to like the video. Really helps us out. Click that little like button. Click the thumbs up. Also, if you want to see when we post new videos, who the hell knows when that's going to be, click that little bell too. You get notifications whenever we go live again. So please do that. Our panel one last time. Danny.
Yep.
Festus.
Yep.
Pebiv.
That's me.
Idefy.
Yep.
Tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Shout for us, baby.
Somebody.
Come on, Tasty.
He's shaking his head. No, he ain't about it. Tasty, you've done an amazing job. Thank you again. You're helping us out tremendously. And as always, Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Hey, Paul. I'm Tane, your latest dancer. I can't wait to entertain you. Now, Tane I can get into. Could I see a hat wobble?
Yes.
And a flargon snout?
Yes.
Is there any way to generate a nude Tane?